In 1941, the Japanese Empire stood at the height of its power. Their ambition to dominate the Pacific seemed unchallenged, and their military prowess was admired by many across the globe. But within this empire of steel and fire, there was a single critical flaw that would, in the end, turn the tide against them. It was a mistake, one small yet catastrophic calculation, a math error. This error, often overshadowed by the more famous battles that followed, would seal Japan's fate and pave the way for their eventual defeat. It was late in the year, the summer of 1941, when Japan's military leadership made a decisive decision. The Pacific was vast, and Japan sought to expand its grip over territories rich in resources, especially oil. To accomplish this, they knew they had to neutralize the United States, their greatest threat in the Pacific. Plans were set in motion for an attack, one that would come to be known as the bombing of Pearl Harbor. In the war rooms of Tokyo, a group of men with their calculators and maps worked tirelessly. The battle plan was coming together, but there was one glaring oversight, one small calculation that no one questioned. A single mistake, one that, if caught earlier, might have changed the entire course of history. The Japanese military, in their confidence, underestimated one crucial factor: the resilience and speed of the American industrial machine. This miscalculation, this flawed assumption about American recovery and response time, was the spark that ignited Japan's downfall. What Japan did not account for was America's ability to rapidly scale its industrial output in the wake of a devastating blow. The attack on Pearl Harbor was meant to cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet, to delay any American retaliation long enough for Japan to establish its empire unopposed. They believed that the loss of ships, planes, and infrastructure would break the will of the United States, buying them the time they needed to solidify their power. But Japan's error was not just in attacking Pearl Harbor, it was in their fundamental misunderstanding of the American response. They thought that the U.S. would be paralyzed by the loss of its naval fleet, but they did not factor in the astonishing speed with which America could replace and even improve upon its losses. The attack, instead of sowing fear and hesitation, united the American public and government. It galvanized a nation that had been reluctant to enter the war, driving them into action with a newfound urgency. As the months passed, the Japanese realized too late that the U.S. was not just recovering. They were innovating. The math error in Tokyo had been simple. The leadership miscalculated how quickly America could rebuild, restock, and mobilize. They failed to account for the incredible manufacturing capacity of American industry. They underestimated the strategic advantage of American intelligence, technology, and resources. They made one critical error: they didn't believe the American will to fight could be sustained. They misjudged the Americans' resolve. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a defining moment in history, but the Japanese miscalculation went deeper. In their attempt to paralyze the United States, they inadvertently unlocked the greatest resource the country had: the ability to adapt, innovate, and rebuild. The Japanese Empire, in all its might, had failed to factor in the speed of American ingenuity. That failure led directly to the overwhelming American victories that would follow. The Battle of Midway, where Japan's naval forces suffered a decisive defeat, was only the beginning. With each victory, the myth of Japanese invincibility shattered, and America's industrial engine powered its way toward ultimate victory. Now, as the years have passed, history remembers the pivotal battles and the leaders who shaped the course of World War II. But behind the battle strategies and the men in command was a single mathematical misstep that tipped the scales. The failure to recognize the full potential of American industry was the Japanese Empire's undoing. It was a mistake that changed everything, and that small error in judgment, one that cost so many lives, would haunt Japan until the end of the war. To this day, the story of how one miscalculation doomed an empire serves as a reminder: in war, even the smallest mistake can lead to devastating consequences. And for the Japanese Empire, that mistake was made in 1941, the year their fate was sealed. As the year unfolded, the repercussions of this critical miscalculation became clear.